Hi, I'm Doug here at Global West. And what I'd like to do today in this particular video is show you how to install Del-a-lum bushings in our tubular upper control arms. Now normally you'll get the bushings already installed, but we do have a lot of customers that have purchased a polyurethane control arm, because we do offer control arms using polyurethane bushings, and they've decided to upgrade to the Del-a-lum bushing. The question is how do you install the Del-a-lum? Well, getting the polyurethane bushings out of our tubular arms is very easy. But putting the Del-a-lum bushing in will require a little bit more finesse to get the bushing in properly. So what I wanted to do in this particular video is show you how to install a Del-a-lum bushing into our control arm. Now this particular control arm, as you can see, doesn't have the ball joint in it, and it doesn't have the bump stop or what have you. It's one of our control arms for Chevelles 64 to 72. It's a CTA 42. But the ball joint in the snubber is not the issue. That just bolts right in. The key here is what we want to show you is how our bushings install into this control arm. So here on the table, we've actually got the layout of what half a kit for the control arm for the Del-a-lum bushings. Now this particular kit is a 1064 kit. Comes with, of course, you would have for both sides, but you're going to have your housings, you're going to have your inserts. These are thrust washers right here, the plastics, which is Delrin, and then you're going to have your outer thrust washers, which are steel, and of course our slotted hex nuts, grease fittings, cotter pins, and so on. And you're going to have a shaft. Now if you're reinstalling, because you've already got a polyurethane kit, obviously you're already going to have this shaft, so that's not a big deal. So we're going to show you exactly how to install this. Now, the Del-a-lum bushing, they have a grease fitting that goes in the control arm. It's going to go on the top up here on these housings. And we have a large hole in the bushing that allows grease to penetrate once you get that hole in. Now we did this hole a little bit larger so that when you drill this, which is going to be a number 3 drill bit, and it's going to be a 1/4 tap is what we're going to do. This hole is larger than that, so when you press this in, if you got this hole off a little bit when you drill it, it's okay because it's still going to go to the opening in the bushing. And what we want to do is we want to set this up so that when you press this in, this hole is going to be approximately in this area, which is 1/4 inch to 5/16 of an inch away from the weld. It's going to be almost straight up. So I got a pin here, and you can see like right here is where it's going to be going. It goes into the middle. You can actually lay the bushing up next to it. See where the hole goes. Go ahead and mark this. You can do that on both sides. It's a visual. It doesn't have to be perfect. It's just a visual. And that's our point to where we're going to drill our number 3 using a number 3 drill bit. We're going to drill this and tap it. The polyurethane control arms do not have a grease fitting in this location. They don't have a grease fitting at all. Okay? So Del-a-lums do have grease fittings. They don't squeak. They're quiet. Inside this housing, it's channeled, rifled, so that grease will penetrate through the entire bushing. And then we have the inserts, of course, that also have holes in it, and there's a channel in here as well for grease to get into the center of the bushing. So let's go ahead, and we're going to go ahead and drill this real quick and get this prepped in order to push this bushing in. Okay, so you can see our marks here on the control arm, and like I say, this is almost straight up and down. It's a visual. You do not, if you wanted to take a tape measure and measure this, you could, but you can see exactly where I'm going with this. And what I want to do is I want to center punch this first, okay? Because we're going to be drilling a hole here. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and drill it. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and tap it. Now I happen to have it on a drill motor here, and we have a little bit of tapping fluid we put on there. Okay. So we've got ahead and we've drilled and tapped. You can see how they line up with our holes, with our marks rather. And if there's anything inside here, you might want to take a little file and you're going to buff that off a little bit. Okay, we're set. Now we're ready to press one of the bushings in. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to press this bushing into the housing of the control arm. Now you may want to see that I've got a straight line. I just took the marker and just went straight out so that when I got a line now so that when I put this bushing in here, I just line the hole up with my marker here, and that's going to set me up for the press. So that's what we're going to do. Okay, so if you'll notice in the press here, I've got it set up so that the bushing, when we're pressing this in, is going against the housing all by itself. It doesn't affect the entire control arm at all. It's only right here. So let's finish pressing that all the way down, and it'll go till it hits the lip. Okay. There we go. Now, I don't know if you can see it or not, but that hole that we put in there, this here, lines up with the hole in the bushing. Like I remember, we make a larger hole in the bushing so it'll always hit. Simple stuff. So it's ready to go. And I've already made a mark on the other side. So what we're going to show you now is how this assembly goes together and the trick on how to press this side in using one of our tools that we have here. Okay, so here we've got our arm and we've got our parts all laid out here. The first thing we're going to do is this shaft is going to come through on the opposite side like this. You got a steel inner thrust washer, and you got a plastic thrust washer, and that's going to go into here like this. And then on the other side, same scenario. Steel washer first, thrust. Okay, once we get that in here, now we're going to press this bushing into here like this. Okay, so let's go back to the press. Okay, so I'm going to show you what we do in our press, or how we have our press set up to put these bushings in our control arms. Now you've seen this before for pressing the first side in, but on the second side we actually have a plate that's got a notch cut out in it like this. Okay, and the reason why we do that is because we have the shaft that's going to protrude down through there. And we only want to press on the arm where the housing is, not across the entire arm. So what I'm getting at is, here where our control arm is, we do not want to put this in the press like this and press down here. It'll actually compress this here. It'll damage the control arm. We want to put the load only in the housing here when we press the bushing in. So that notch is so the shaft will go in between there, and then we can properly press this bushing into this control arm. So let me show you how that goes. So you can see how that dropped correctly in. It lines up our thrust washers on the inside. Everything is in position. So we just take our press tool here. We line our hole up with our line, so it's ready to go. And we go ahead and press this in. Okay, it's down. Okay, everything lines up. Our holes are lined up. Shaft is in here and it rotates nicely. Okay, we're ready to put the rest of the arm together. So let's go ahead. We'll come back over to the bench here. We'll show you how to do that. Okay, so we're back on the bench again, and now what we're going to do is we're going to install these inserts. Now, a lot of people ask us about what type of grease do we use. So this is it right here. It's Neo Z12. Now this grease isn't found everywhere. It's a synthetic grease. You'll find it in motorcycle race shops, automotive race shops, marine. It's water resistant, which is one of the main reasons why we use it. And the other thing too is that when you take this product, it goes into the pores of the plastic and it stays. And because it's water resistant, it doesn't wash out. And that's the biggest thing in suspension, is having a grease that doesn't wash out with water. So this particular grease can be used with ball joints, U-joints. It's a high temp grease as well, so we actually use it in our hubs for our race cars that we set up. It's good grease all the way around. We've been using it now for close to 40 years. It's excellent. So it's Neo Z12. And as you can see, it comes in a tube, so it's an easy thing for your grease gun. This is a standard size. And you can get it in tubs as well, which we also do have. So what we want to do is we want to lubricate inside and out on these inserts. And we're also going to put grease inside here. Okay, we're just going to do a little bit of that. And we're going to pop this in like so. See? Go to the other side. Same procedure. Can get a little messy, but we want lubrication to be all through the product when we assemble. Pops on in like so. Now you're going to have outer thrust washers, plastic, not steel, plastic. Plastic's always against the aluminum housing. They pop in like this. These are your steel outer thrust washers. They go on like this. And now you're going to use your slotted hex nuts. Okay. 15/16 socket. You're going to bring this down, and we're going to bring it in. You see how it's pushing this through? That's okay, because I got so much in there. Okay. Rag here. You see I'm just running them down. I'm not going super tight on them here. Okay. Now, what we want to do is we want to set the preload on these particular bushings. Now, the way you do that is you're going to go ahead and tighten these down. You see me tightening this down. It gets pretty tight. I want to seat the thrust washers against the bushing. Okay? I want to seat everything. It's kind of like setting a wheel bearing. I'm going to back it all the way off. See? I'm going to bring it down until I have, we call it thrust contact. So you see I'm just starting to pick up some resistance right there. I look at my flat here, right? And I want to give it a little preloaded, so I'm going to just give it about 1/8 of a turn or so. That's all you need. You're done on the preload setting of the bushing. Do not tighten it anymore. It's real similar to setting a wheel bearing. Okay, it's very similar. So we're going to do that on both sides. Seat it, back it off. I'm starting to get some resistance. About 1/8 of a turn. I'm locked up. Now, it doesn't take a lot of effort here to move it. See? Not much at all. See? Okay. If you over torque this, you can lock this up. It's very crucial to only put that small amount of preload into these bushings. Okay? So, now that we've got that done, we're going to go ahead and put our grease fittings in. And like these are all furnished in the kit. Okay, so we got our preload set, bushings are in. the final step on this installation is drilling a hole here because we're going to cotter pin this, similar to what the wheel bearings are. If we don't do cotter pin here, or if you just tied a regular lock nut, what would happen is as the suspension moves up and down, eventually this nut will back off. So by cotter pinning it, we eliminate that condition. So that's what we're going to do next. So let's show you how we're going to do it. Okay, so for our final operation, we're going to go ahead and drill these. Now it's an 1/8 inch drill bit, okay? So we set it up in our drill press. We line it up with the flat. Pretty simple operation. So now it's a matter of putting the cotter pin in. Okay, there we go. That's how you install a set of Del-a-lum bushings. Now you don't have to re-grease this right now because it is full. You've seen the grease all coming out as we were putting the product together. Plenty of grease in here. Clean up the excessive grease around the outside and this is done. That's all. So now you got an idea on how you could install a Del-a-lum bushing in our upper control arms. As you can see, it's pretty a straightforward deal. Not too difficult, but you do have to pay attention on where you drill your holes. Make sure you get the torque setting correct or the preload set on the bushing properly. And a good set of grease. Neil Z12 is what we use. That's pretty much it. This is how you install a Del-a-lum in a Global West control arm.